and welcome to Collective Evolution Podcast Network's channel, Inspired Expansion. I'm your host, Gibson, and I'm honored to have an incredible guest here today, Carmen Di Luccio. Carm is an international astrology expert who services a worldwide clientele and is Collective Evolution's personal astrologer. He writes articles, is featured on numerous podcasts, and has a monthly show in Collective Evolution's Explorer Lounge. Carm has studied astrology for more than a decade, empowering people all over the world to find deeper understanding within and make important decisions in their lives. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
And so before we get started, will you tell people a little bit about how you got into astrology in the first place? What inspired you to start learning about all of this?
So about 12 years ago, roughly, I was going through like a bit of, I was going through a lot of like spiritual transformation, if you want to call it that, spiritual activation. I was becoming more like, actually, let me fast forward a bit more, rewind a bit more. The years leading up to that, I was going through a period where I was becoming a truth seeker. I was learning about the world. I was getting a lot into like conspiracies and things like that. And then, so I was kind of like, had a sort of a negative outlook on things. And then in 2006, I had, everything shifted. I started becoming a truth seeker in a positive way. I had like a bit of a spiritual activation or awakening, if you want to call it that. And I was just trying to find my place in the world. You know, I was becoming a different person. And I was at a job that I didn't like. I wasn't happy about certain situations in my life, but I was also optimistic for where my life was going, right? But I wasn't sure, like, you know, what should I be doing? And so I was going to like psychics and, you know, things like that, right? Trying to find my place in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was studying a little bit of numerology actually before that, but it wasn't until I started making new friends, I started changing my vibe, attracting new people into my life, and I was hanging out with this new friend that I met, and we were at his condo, and then he asked me, he was studying astrology, and he asked me my birth time, right? And I was always kind of interested in astrology. Like I always resonated with the traits of my sun sign, which is Taurus, but I didn't know, I thought that was it. I didn't know there was more to it, right? And then he asked me my birth time with my location. I'm like, holy, that must be very specific. And then he pulled up my chart. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I just became obsessed with it like instantly. And then I went home, I Googled, I just Googled it like crazy. I started learning on my own, getting beginners books. Then I moved out to the mountains. I moved out to the west side of Canada, and I was just exposed to a lot of astrology out there. And just, yeah, that's basically how I got it. So I was basically like, the main thing that really pulled me to it was I was just trying to find, like, self-discover myself, figure out who I was, because I was the old version of me before I had this like spiritual shift was different than, a more higher potential of who I could be. Right. And so astrology helped me to sort of be more in alignment with, even though the thing is that, like, I don't want to jump all over the place, but the thing is that, we're always a reflection in some way of our astrology, but when the more we like shift our consciousness and everything, then we can express a different expression of our astrological energies, right? And so that's kind of where I was, just trying to find my place in the world, and then and basically, like, that's actually, like, I had to do that for myself, right, with astrology and with other things, and then now I'm doing that with others too. Like I'm because so that's why I attract a lot of people who are in that place, because I know where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so cool, because it's sort of like you were saying, I started truth seeking and I started looking externally, and then I got to this point where I wanted to shift into a more positive space of that, and instead of sort of externalizing what I was learning, I got to look within, and astrology is sort of like this tool for introspection in that way, to sort of dig within, and it sort of provides a mirror for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is kind of external too, but it's external, but it helps with your internal process, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So how does it work for people who are not familiar? How does astrology work from the context of, we have our different houses, our different planets affect us differently. So can you give us sort of the overall synopsis about this?
So most people are familiar with their sign, which is their sun sign, which is based on the month, that you were born. But when we get to, when you look at the person's exact time and location, then we get a whole blueprint of all the positions of the planets, right? So basically, like if you're like, let's say, you're Scorpio, but if you're born in the middle of the day, the sun is going to be at the top of your chart, right? And this is what, just in case people don't know what I'm talking about, this is what an astrology chart looks like. It's a wheel, right?
Yeah.
And so basically, if you're born in the middle of the day, the sun's going to be at the top. If you're born at midnight, the sun's going to be here. And so wherever your sun is and all your other planets is based on the time of day, the time of year and the location, right? And so what happens is, we have our sun sign, but then we also have the moon sign, we have a Mercury sign, we have a Venus, or Venus is in the moon sign, on Mars, and all the planets. And you can even go really deep. You can even go further. You can look at asteroids if you want. You can look at, it's never ending, right?
Wow.
And then so there are all these different signs, right? But then there's different houses, like you said, and the houses they're kind of like signs, but they represent like sections in the sky, right? So if you're born around sunrise, for example, then your sun is going to be in the first house. If you're born, then if you're born after that, it's going to be in the 12th house, and if you're born in the middle of the day, it's going to be in the 10th or 9th house, right? And so the houses represent, the way it works is the signs are how you express those planets. Right. So let's say you have your Mars in a sign like Aries. You're gonna be very assertive in general, right? But
okay, so can it interrupt for 1 second? So just to sort of reel it back for people who are completely unfamiliar.
Okay.
We have 12 houses, correct?
12 signs too.
Okay, 12 signs and 12 houses.
Yeah.
And then how do these things overlap? Like when you say.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. So let's say you have so you have, let's say your Mars, it's in Aries, or let's say okay, how about this? I'll make it a little more. Let's say you have Mars in a sign like Libra. Okay, Mars has to do with your assertiveness, has to do with action. It could have to do with how you go after things, how you express anger too. When it's in Libra is a sign of looking at both sides, right? It's not a direct energy. Libra is always considering, right? So you might, whenever you take action, your action will be based on consideration in a Libra way, Libra style, okay?
Yeah.
But so that's the sign it's in. But then we look at what house it's in, and the house shows us what area of your life it's what area of your life it's very strong in. It's invested in more. Just to keep it simple. But the sign shows how that planet expresses itself, but the house is the area of life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So can we go through and just do a general synopsis of what each of these houses are?
Another thing too we should just mention is that the planets are also interacting with each other as well. Right? So let's say let's say I have Mars and Libra in the third house, but it might be square Pluto or something, and then that'll influence also how Mars, other planets interact that also affect the expression of that planet as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so let's start with the 12 signs, because this is where people are most familiar. So what would you say are the general, let's say we'll start with Aries, because that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
And we'll go through and we'll talk about each of the 12 signs, and maybe is it just the 3 positive and 3 negative traits of each, and then we'll sort of match the planets and how the sign is expressed in each of the houses. Does that work?
Okay, cool. So yeah, we can do that. So So Aries is, first sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign. So the signs are divided in earth, air, water, fire, or fire first. And so those are the elements. I think we should start with the elements first.
Perfect. Okay? Let's start with the elements.
Because that's the fundamental, and then we go. There's earth, air, water, fire. Okay. So there's 3 of each. There's 3 fire signs, 3 earth, 3 air, and 3 water. Fire signs are more like energetic, inspired, fast moving, very passionate in general. And those include, we'll get into them when we go through the list, right? Then there's earth signs. Earth signs are more grounded, practical, realistic, thorough. They generally move a bit slower than fire signs, generally speaking. Fire is like more energetic.
Yeah.
Then we go to air signs, and air signs are more like intellectual, social, communicative, more of a mental energy, right? And then we go to water signs, and water signs are more emotional, more sensitive, more intuitive. They tend to be like the deeper signs of the zodiac. Now, another thing too, just since we're on that topic, earth and water signs are what we call yin signs, or some people call them feminine signs, but they're books just say yin. And air and fire are yang signs, right? So people got a lot of air, fire. And I just want to say, it also depends on the whole chart, right? But if you generalize, like if you look at the people in your life, people who are like earth, water are generally more, they're generally more introverted, generally. It depends on everything else, but generally speaking. And air and fire are more projective, right? They're more, they initiate things, they might initiate conversations more, they generally speaking, right? They might be more like talkative, they might be more loud, they might be, whereas earth and water are a little bit more like receptive,
reserved, and
more they respond more.
Yes.
Right. So that's the earth and water, the yin, and the air and fire are yang. Now let's start with the 12 signs. Perfect. So we'll go to Aries, and one more thing actually I should say is that the way the zodiac works is, a lot of people think that the signs are based on the constellations and the stars.
Yeah.
And it's actually not.
Interesting. So what are they
based on? It has nothing to do with that. The zodiac is divided based on the Earth's relationship with our own star, with our sun, not other stars. Right. Wow. So the way it works is like the signs are divided up based on like the seasons, right? You know how like there's a Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, like the north and southern hemisphere? That comes from that. So the zodiac that we use is called the tropical zodiac. Now there's other systems too. There's like, if you go to Indian astrology, they use the sidereal zodiac, which is, we're not going to get into that. But this is called the tropical zodiac, okay? Yeah. And so when we look at the tropical zodiac, each season, so spring starts with Aries, and then it goes to Taurus, and then it goes to Gemini. All right, so fire, earth, air. But so there's 4 seasons, 3 signs per season, right? And
just like 3 months within a season, basically. It's easy to remember.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And so Aries starts right on the equinox as soon as spring starts. That's spring. That's the equinox. Okay, and just it happens to be the Persian New Year is the spring equinox, which is interesting because it's the first sign. It's the first zodiac sign. So that's like a real New Year. Is that not the calendar New Year? And so each season. So we talk about the 4 elements, but there's also 4 modes or 4 qualities, right? So there's cardinal signs. This is something that less people know about. There's cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs, right? So in springtime, like each season starts with a cardinal sign, right? So Aries starts spring, Cancer starts summer, Libra starts the fall, and Capricorn starts the winter. And those are the cardinal. Cardinal means first. Cardinal's initiating, okay? Then the middle sign of each season is the fixed sign. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. They're in the middle. They're like, and And then we go to the last each season, those are called mutable signs. Those are more positioning into the next season, more adaptable inner signs, right?
Yeah.
And so that's basically like the fundamentals, the elements and the qualities, the modes. Those are called the modes. So when we start with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, it's cardinal fire. So cardinal signs, I didn't really get too much into it. So cardinal is more initiating, right? Like I said, they're initiating energy. And then fixed is more like a concentrated energy, very concentrated, very focused, and that's fixed signs are generally more stubborn, right? Because they're very like concentrated. And then the mutable signs, the last sign of the zodiac, is they're more adaptable. Flexible. They spread themselves out and they're getting ready for the next cardinal sign next season, right? And so Aries is cardinal fire. Okay, so fire, we talk about, it's energetic. But it's cardinal signs. So cardinal, it's that's why Aries, out of all the fire signs or of all the cardinal signs,
like the greatest initiator.
It's the most cardinal and the most fiery. It depends how you look at it, but it's the most cardinal of all the cardinal signs because it's fire. Because fire is initiating too.
Yes.
But cardinal is initiating, and cardinal, and it also has to do with like Aries is about leadership. It's a trailblazing energy. It's about moving things forward.
Sort of like a pioneer in a way.
It's a pioneer, yeah. But so that's the strength of Aries. Aries is always thinking ahead. It's always looking ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the challenge with Aries, the challenge that comes with that is the Aries energy in general doesn't always take everything into consideration. It just
sort
goes
of like
forward.
Jumps into things without thinking things through, in a sense.
Yeah, it's like a bullet.
Yeah.
You know, and so and that's why Aries are like fast moving. A lot of athletes are Aries, for example. Right? But they can burn out quick too, actually.
Yes,
so that's the thing. If you look back at history,
I've often heard that Aries are like the sign that starts and then has a hard time finishing or following through on different.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah, they'll initiate. They just all initiating energy, right? And so so that's cardinal fire, right?
Yeah. So let's say you're an Aries and you hear this.
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice you have for an Aries person? Would it be to try to be the initiator and pioneer on projects and then delegate the rest of your details, or to just be aware of your tendency to not follow through on things? Like what would you say as an Aries?
So yeah, generally, I mean, ultimately it depends on the whole chart, really. Yes. You gotta look at the whole chart, right? But generally speaking, a lot of Aries sun signs, yeah, absolutely. Like initiating things is good. And if they can delegate, then that's good. If they can take the lead, get things going. Like Aries are the ones that get things going, but then other people might take over a lot of times, right? Like people like fixed signs or something, or mutable signs. But yeah, so being like leadership, trusting and another thing with Aries too is that Aries can also be a very intuitive sign too. Like they're very, generally speaking, they don't necessarily think things through. They just do it. They're very instinctual.
Yeah, sort of act on like impulse in a sense. Yeah.
Impulsive. And it could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like the good thing is that they just do it. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But sometimes they might do things and it's like, well, the thing is with Aries, they usually don't look back and regret it. They're just like, okay, they just move on, right? So
not one to have regrets in that sense.
Yeah, they don't hold on to things. They always, Aries is a very forward moving energy. It's always forward. Right?
So does that relate to Aries also being quick to forgive?
They can be. They're not, I wouldn't necessarily say Aries is necessarily a forgiving sign. They could be, but it's just, they just don't care anymore. They're not necessarily like forgiving. Like they're not be like, oh, I want to forgive this person to mend our relationship. They're just going to move on. And sometimes fixing a relationship with somebody could happen. It could be part of the moving on process, but they're not. But if that person is still mad at them or whatever it is, there's still drama. They're just going to move on anyways. You know what I mean? Like that's what yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. So what's next? So what's after Aries? Aquarius?
Yeah, and another thing too, actually, just one more thing we should do is we should talk about the planets that rule each sign, right? So Aries is ruled by Mars. It's ruled by Mars. So Mars is like action orientated. It can be, Aries can be one of the more aggressive signs in general. Very initiating, right? So that's another thing. That's what Mars is about, right? Initiating action. And this is good because we're going to get to the planets later. So we're kind of getting
context for everything. Fantastic.
Yeah. So then we go to Taurus, which is next. So it's the middle of the season. It's the middle of spring.
Yeah.
And Taurus is an earth sign, and it's a fixed sign. And Taurus is kind of like Aries in a way where they're both like Aries is the most cardinal out of the cardinal signs, and Taurus is the most fixed out of the fixed signs.
Interesting. So in the first season, this is where the most of each is sort of applying in terms of just
probably, yeah, I would think so. Yeah. In some ways, because Gemini's like that too. But another thing too, I just want to say, since we're on the topic, is that the zodiac is an evolution. Right? Like it's the earlier signs have more in common than the later sign, because the way it works is that, so Aries, like the beginning of the zodiac is more independent, it's more self-orientated.
Yes.
So Aries is very self-orientated. Like sometimes Aries could appear selfish or appear like they don't care about others. They just want to do what they want. They're just
thinking about themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And Taurus could even appear like that too, right? And so less like the Aries, but Taurus can be like that, especially when it comes to resources and money and food and things like that. Taurus can be like that, right? And so then when we get to later in the zodiac, like the middle of the zodiac, we start getting to Libra. It's more relationship oriented. It's more others, me, others, Scorpio, Libra, right? Yeah. Then when we go to the end of the zodiac, it's more collective, right? And then Pisces, like, right? So that's another thing that we should say. So now we go back to Taurus, and Taurus is more independent or self-orientated when it comes to, you know, their values,
goals, desires,
when it comes to their values, when it comes to their worth, when it comes to like resources, money, food, because Taurus rules food, right? And if you ever have a Taurus in your life, it's like, you know, if Taurus loves like substances and things tasting good, and if you know, if you have a Taurus in your life and you go in the kitchen and you take their yummy food that they've been waiting all day to eat it, they're gonna unleash on you, and so right, so it's an earth sign, so it's very grounded, practical, realistic, thorough, very thorough. I'm a Taurus, by the way, but it's the problem with Taurus. The thing is with Taurus, because it's earth and it's fixed. See, fixed is like, it's fixed means fixed. It's fixated. Yeah, but it's like fixed in one spot, right? Yes. And because it's fixed earth.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, my phone. I should put my phone on Do Not Disturb. My phone was ringing, but
that's okay.
So the way it works is that it's Taurus is like, when I said Aries is kind of like a bullet, right? Yes. Taurus is like a rock. It's like a rock. Okay. The thing is with Taurus is that Taurus could be very slow. Taurus can get very easily lazy. It's ruled by Venus, right? It's all about pleasures. It's all about you know,
materials and stuff like that too sometimes, right?
It could be like some Tauruses can be materialistic, but some Tauruses can be like very much connected to the earth and like gardening and being in nature. You know what I mean? Like that can be another way of Taurus. And so slow, right? But the thing is, once they have, this is the Taurus tip, right? Is that once, and it's coming from a Taurus, is that Taurus is all about momentum. They build momentum, right? Yeah. So you know, like when you roll a rock down a hill, it starts picking up momentum, starts going faster. Or sort
of like when a train
starts. That's what Taurus is, right?
Yeah.
Taurus
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it builds up momentum, right? So Taurus can build up momentum of being lazy, right? Or it could build up momentum of getting stuff done. So sometimes like Taurus
so it
could
can downward
procrastinate,
spiral or upward
right? The way,
yeah.
yeah, just momentum, right?
Yeah.
It's just they build up momentum. And so Taurus is the type of energy where if they're like, if they got things to do, right? They'll procrastinate. They'll be in a period where they're not doing much. It's like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do that. They'll procrastinate, and finally like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then they'll build up, and then they'll just go all in. They build up momentum. And then they're done what they're doing, but they still have this momentum. So my tip for Taurus is that while you have that momentum, get other things going, get other,
Fantastic.
you know what I mean? Like that's how it is. And then they almost become like they become like an Aries after.
Wow.
They become like very fast after, because it's like a rock rolling down a hill.
Initiating. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
right?
cool. Fantastic. And what would you say is a weakness of Taurus at times? What would you say to be careful of as a Taurus?
Well, I already kind of said, like, Taurus can be lazy. Taurus can be stubborn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be lazy. It could be Taurus sometimes could overeat. Could be Taurus is one of the signs that could put on weight more easily.
Because of that, right? Sort of
Taurus can overeat. Food. Taurus is about food and also being stagnant, not moving the body.
Yes.
Right. I'm just generally speaking, right? Generally, it depends on the chart. And Taurus can be some Tauruses, like just maybe not flexible, you know. But there can be, you know. But the thing is, like, let's say we talked about Aries and Taurus. Mm-hmm. Let's say you had Aries and Taurus together. The Aries would be good at initiating things because Taurus is less of an initiator. Okay. But then Taurus might be good at, the Aries will miss out a lot of things because they got like tunnel vision in a way. And Taurus will be the one that'll be like, oh, what about this? What about that? Because Taurus is thorough, where Aries is not thorough at all.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you said, the planets. So you said Taurus is governed by Mars, or sorry, by Venus. Yeah. And what does Venus represent?
So Venus represents beauty. Venus represents pleasures. It's like a fun energy, and that's the thing, is Tauruses love beauty, like being surrounded by beauty, whether it's in nature, whether it's being in a place that's got nice ambience. Tauruses sometimes can be creative too in some cases, but it's not like, you know, Venus is the natural ruler of love, and Taurus is not necessarily. Taurus can be a good lover. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. But the Venusian qualities that Taurus really expresses is just the love for pleasure and beauty. You know, that's sort of the
Beautiful. Okay, and what's after Taurus?
So then we go to Gemini, right? So now we're mutable air, right? So Gemini. Okay, so what's interesting is that, you know, so I talked about, when I was talking about how the earlier part of the zodiac is more independent. Like Gemini, they can be social because they're air, like, right? But Gemini, their self-orientation comes from, whenever you're around in Gemini, they want to do all the talking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's where the self-orientation comes. It's like, let me talk. I want to do all the talking. I'm just generalizing here, right? Yeah. So that's the thing, is that's where they're right. Whereas if you go to other air signs, they're more inclusive,
open to receiving people's conversation.
Yeah. Right? Gemini just like, I have to, can I tell you, I want to talk, I need someone to talk to, right? And so
and in my opinion, you know, I know a little bit about some of this stuff, and you know, Donald Trump, for example, is a Gemini, or Kanye West is a Gemini, and you sort of see, I think these are good examples of personalities that are just so, you can tell they're sort of a little bit self-absorbed sometimes, and I know that doesn't mean all Geminis, of course, and I know, like you said, it's so dependent on the rest of your chart. But you see that tendency to just sort of like over talk and be all about everything just sort of flows through them so quickly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they're the Geminis are the so Gemini, it's an air sign ruled by Mercury, and it's mutable. So air signs are more intellectual, more social. They generally speaking, Geminis are, and air signs in general, they like to learn, they like to read information, but especially Gemini. And Gemini is like the internet is like the best thing to happen for Geminis, right? Because they can just Google anything, they can information overload, right?
Yeah.
Geminis like it. Geminis love, like if you ever want to know anything about anything, you ask a Gemini, and if they don't know, they'll tell you where to find out. They'll know where to look, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is with Geminis, they like to spread, it's immutable energy. So they like to spread themselves out, right? And so that mutable energy applies mentally and with information. So they'll know like a bit about this, a little bit about that, but more on a surface level. They never have the focus to go fully deep into something. That's the thing with Gemini. They know the surface level of everything, right? Because they're so spread out, their mind is like all over the place, right?
So it's sort of like they accumulate this conglomeration of facts and then don't dig too deep into that information.
Generally speaking, they don't. So they're whereas like let's say a fixed sign, like fixed signs in general, they might have more of the the tendency to go deeper into it, but they might not have the broad range of understanding that Gemini would has.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sense. Yeah. So and Gemini also is about, and Mercury is about communication, right? So Gemini is, well, first of all, Gemini is like the ultimate student. It's the best student, Gemini. And they're kind of quick in some ways. Like Gemini is kind of a quick energy compared to Taurus. In some ways, Gemini in a way is kind of like Aries in a way where it's quick, but Aries is more direct, whereas Gemini spreads itself out, right? But it's quick. Sometimes Geminis get anxious easily too.
And Geminis have a lot of energy, I tend to notice. Is that just something I pick up on?
You're right, because they're mutable air. So air signs are more like flowy, and mutables like spreads itself out. So it's hard for Gemini to sit still. Right? It's kind of like air. Like Aries is like
in a way.
What's that?
Like a restlessness in a way.
It's restless, because it gets bored easily.
Yeah.
Geminis get bored easily. Like if they have to focus on one thing, forget it. They need to be scattered. Like I always make a joke about this, that if I was a cop, okay, and if I pulled someone over for using their phone while driving, if I got their license and I saw that they were a Gemini on their birthday, I would let them off. They'll probably drive better with talking on their phone. No, it's true.
No, that makes sense.
It's true. It's true, because that's how they.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny too, because in my experience at least, people who are, there's certain signs that are like more obvious. Those traits express themselves so obviously, and I think Gemini is such a good example of that, because Gemini, I'm sure anybody who sees and has a Gemini in their life, they see exactly what you're talking about, because it's just, most Geminis are so congruent with this. Yeah.
They are, and they'll be like, while they're talking to somebody, like they get the hand. I envy that sometimes.
Carm, will you say that again for a second?
Another thing with Gemini, because.
Will you repeat that? The internet connection slowed down.
Yeah. So Gemini is. So the way like Geminis could read a book while they're listening to a podcast, while they're talking to somebody, all at once. Like they're and I kind of envy that a little bit. I wish I could. I can do all that. They're really good at multitasking, but especially when it comes to information, anything to do with information, communication, mentally, that's where their strength is on a multitasking level. Now, Gemini also rules communication. Gemini is about communication, it's ruled by Mercury. So we talked about Geminis have a lot of things to say, but Geminis are usually good with words. They're really good at like if ever you're around a Gemini and you say something incorrectly, usually Geminis might correct you. They might say, "Oh, you said that wrong," or or they're really good at, it depends on other things, but usually, generally speaking, they're good at throwing words around. Like they know words that you've never, like, whoa, I never heard of that word. Not all of them, but some of them can be like that. But then you get a guy like Donald Trump.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah, generally, right? But then you get a guy like Donald Trump who has a limited vocabulary. He's a Gemini. But he's good at, and I'm not saying I'm pro-Trump, right? I'm just saying as it is, objectively. I remember one time he said something like, I know words, I know good words, and people are making fun of him for saying that. But he's actually pretty good at the limited words that he knows. He's really good at getting his message across, though. He's good at using them, right? And so that's kind of like, and a lot of rappers are Geminis. Really, a lot of rappers are Geminis.
Interesting. Sort of because you have to think so quickly and on the spot and come up with words quickly, and that makes so much sense. Yeah,
totally. And being able to adapt, like a lot of rappers, they freestyle, right? So they'll throw a beat and they got to think of something in the moment. And that's that mutable, adaptable energy, right? Mutable signs, right?
Fantastic. And so what would you say the tip is for a Gemini? What they should be aware of and
like whatever Geminis are doing in their life, it's good to do something where they have a variety of things going in their life.
They need that novelty all the time.
Yeah, they might get more depressed. They might get depressed if they're not doing a variety of things.
Yeah. And maybe having a lot of social connection as well, I would almost say.
Social connection, having somebody in their life that they can talk to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What else? Share. No, I was
going to say, what would you say the negative traits are, like, to be aware of? So we sort of touched on them when we talked about.
Oh, yeah. So there's one more important thing. There's one thing we didn't talk about that Gemini is also about duality. It's the twins. Okay?
Yeah.
So Gemini, if you look at Geminis in your life, there's like two sides to them.
Yeah.
Okay. And it could be in a good way or a bad way. Like you can have some Geminis, like the former mayor of Toronto, Ron Ford. He was a Gemini, and he was mayor by day and crackhead by night. And right. But then I have a good friend who's a Gemini. She's a cop, and she's like a dangerous cop. Like she's like
strong and tough and.
No, but she's like SWAT, like emergency task force, like militarized cop, right? But when you see her in person, she looks like a princess. Right? But then when you see her in her uniform, she looks like she's ready to go to war, and that's the duality in her life, and it's kind of in a good way. Like she's not a bad person, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes Gemini, it can, and that's like that's an acceptable way, right? So that's the thing. So with Gemini, and this kind of goes to your question, is Gemini likes those different sides of Gemini. How are you expressing it? Are you expressing it in a negative way, or are you expressing it in a positive way? Because you can have different sides to you. Like I have another friend who, check this out, he's a Gemini too. And he's an astrologer, okay?
Yeah.
He's but he's also a Catholic, which is because the Catholic Church is kind of against astrology.
Yeah.
And he's gay too. So like everything he's into, the Catholic Church is against. But
so there's that split again.
When he goes to church, he's wearing. Yeah. It's like, and it could be more than two. Like Gemini is the chameleon; it adapts to different. It's like very adaptable to whatever it's doing, right? So that's another example. So, So my advice though is that whenever you're expressing that dualistic side for Gemini or different facets of your personality, not to get too, because what could happen is they can get maybe too caught up. A lot of Geminis can get caught up in the dark, like in a negative way.
The shadow side, in a sense.
Yeah, and everyone's got their shadow. Everyone's got whatever, but sometimes, that's the thing with Gemini is that when you want to express yourself in a multifaceted way, try to do it in a way where is more in a more positive way, right? And that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so after Gemini, what is it? Cancer?
Yeah, so Cancer is next, so now we're going into summer. And
So now
Cancer
we stop
is,
and we repeat the season basically, right? Or we start a new
yeah,
season.
we're repeating the cardinal fixed mutable sequence,
Yes.
right? So cardinal, so Cancer's, again, we're going back to initiating energy, but it's a water sign. So it's initiating like water related stuff. So water is all about emotional connection, bonding, nurturing. It's all about like family, right? And so Cancer is about family, but water is all about, it's intuitive, it's emotional connection. So Cancers initiate those like emotional connections with people, with others.
Interesting.
Right? So they'll like initiate a lot of times anything to do with family. Anything that's family orientated. If you have a Cancer in the family, they might be the ones that are like, hey, let's have a family picnic or whatever, right? Like they so
and I think you mentioned earlier too,
now in terms,
I think you were saying that water signs are like the deep signs in a sense. Like they tend to dive into things deeper. Is that true of Cancer?
yeah, they're more deep. Yeah, because they're more, they generally speaking, they're deeper. I would say out of all the water signs, Cancer might have the less depth out of all three, but it still has depth. Don't get me wrong. But Cancer is more like so Cancer is ruled by the moon. Okay, Cancer is, the water signs are more emotional. They're more emotional. Like they might cry more. They're more sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Cancer is probably the most sensitive, the most obviously sensitive, right? The other ones might be not as obvious.
Yeah.
Right. So
Cancer, they hide it better, basically.
Cancer. Was that? The other signs might hide it better. Yeah, especially Scorpio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a Scorpio.
So yeah. Well, Scorpio especially, right? Yeah. And so Cancer is ruled by the moon, and this is the interesting point, because Cancer's moods change most quickly. They're the most moody. They can be happy, then all of a sudden they're mad, and you know what I mean? Because they're ruled by the moon, and the moon is the fastest moving heavenly body that we observe.
Yes.
Right? Like the moon is always, all the planets are always moving in the sky, but the moon is moving through the sky the quickest, because it orbits around Earth, right? Yeah. So the moon will spend 2.5 days in the sign, whereas another planet like Mercury might be there for 3 weeks. You know, so the moon, because it's always changing, it's moving in different signs, it's interacting with different planets. That's one of the reasons why Cancers, their moods are always changing, because their rulers all over the place. Not all over the place, but it's always
how quick their moods change, essentially.
So Cancer could be like a very motherly energy, very warm energy, but the thing is, when I talked about how the beginning of the zodiac is more independent, like more not independent, but just self-orientated.
The initiator. Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, not initiator, but the beginning part of the zodiac is more self-orientated. Okay.
Yes.
We talked about the different examples of the previous signs.
Yeah.
Cancer might seem like they're not. You're like, whoa, Cancer, because Cancers are very caring. Cancer's like, if you're close to a Cancer, if the Cancer doesn't, not familiar with you, it could be different, right? But if they're comfortable with you, they're very, how are you? You go over their house, can I get you some tea? Can I get you some cookies? Right? Like they're make you feel at home, cozy. Yeah. But it's actually about them. It's not about you. It's about them, right? It's about, they need you. They can be needy. They need emotional connection with people. So even though they might be very warm and nurturing towards you, and they are, don't get me wrong, it's actually more about them. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is, right? Yeah. But that's what they need, right? And so that's where the self-orientated energy, and also like, family is very important for Cancer. And so family is an aspect of the self, I guess. I don't know how to, I'm just trying to think of words to explain it, but like other signs are more When we get later in the zodiac, they are more open to, are more oriented around relationships with others, right? But because Cancer is more about people who are close to them and family.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and that's
what
why
are
they're
the negative traits? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's Cancer is ruled by it's associated with the crab, right? It's ruled by the moon. We talk about that, but it's the crab is the symbol. So Cancer, sometimes they could, they're very sensitive. Yeah, they're very sensitive, and so they like to be in their shell.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why, like, unless they open up to you, they're sometimes they can be in their shell, or if they get upset, they get moody. They retreat. Right.
Yeah.
So what was your question?
Just the negative traits of Cancer. So you said that they withdraw sometimes, or they go into their shell. You said that they're moody. Is there anything else that a Cancer should watch out for, or a tip that you have?
Not to take things personally. Sometimes, in some cases, it depends what it is.
Yeah.
But I think Cancers can take things personally easily.
Yeah.
They can be not. I would say my tip for Cancer was more for the people in their life.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're dating a Cancer. Yeah, if you're dating a Cancer, learn a little bit of astrology and know, like, okay, maybe I should just stay away from my partner today, because they're being extra moody.
Or maybe for a Cancer to sort of get in charge of their moods and to understand their emotions and learn how to communicate that to somebody instead of just withdrawing and pushing somebody away, to be able to talk about, okay, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and I just need a little bit of space for now.
Cancers need people in their life that they can connect with on an emotional level and share their feelings. That's what they need.
Yeah.
If a Cancer's, so that's what they need. They need to have Cancers the positive tip is to surround yourself around supportive relationships that support your needs, because some people are not down for that Cancer way of life, right? And especially, like, people got a lot of air and fire. They're not, they can't handle it, right?
Absolutely.
But Cancers need to surround themselves with people who are, who they can share on that level. And the negative trait is to just that they need to watch out for. Well, I guess that's both positive. I mean, that is the negative that they need to watch out for. And not, just because Cancers, they can, their moods can negatively impact their relationships. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why that ties into what I said. And then,
beautiful.
Is there anything else? So in terms of positive,
you said nurturing, emotional.
Yeah, nurturing, warm,
deep.
So Cancers are really well. Anything that involves, like, Cancer energy is really good for, like, in health and wellness in some cases, like nursing or retreats, or anything that involves, caring for others. It's a very caring sign. It's like motherly energy.
Nurturing.
Right? So using their motherly energy.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, and after Cancer, what is it? Leo? So after Cancer?
Leo. Yeah. So Leo's the middle of the zodiac. It's fixed. Fire. Right? So it's kind of like, how do you fix fire? It's like a bonfire, right? Yes. And so when you're having a bonfire, everyone's around the fire watching the fire. Everyone's, it's kind of like a Leo.
The Leo wants the center of everything.
Leo, it's ruled by the sun, right? And everything orbits around the sun, right? And so Leo, that's what Leo's about. Leo's about wanting to shine. Also, Leo wants attention, but Leo's all about, it's very energetic. It's fire, so it's energetic. It's very energetic, but it's not like I'm always moving forward energy like Aries. Yeah. It's fixed fire. So Leos have more of the tendency to dwell on things compared to Aries. Aries moves forward, right? Leo's fixed, right? Leo is, Leo at the end of the day, they want attention, they want to shine, they want people to recognize them, but they're very creative, they're performers, they're very, some Leos can be some of the most entertaining, or Leo's a very powerful energy, right? And fixed signs in general are very powerful because fixed signs are very concentrated energies, right?
Very focused in that sense.
Yeah, they can be focused, especially when it comes to create anything to do with creativity.
Yeah.
Like they're very creative, they're playful, they're fun, they're like childlike.
Yes.
Right? Some Leos are really good at working with children, right? And so the thing is with Leos is, I guess this goes to our tips, is like Leos like to have attention and like to be respected, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, like the shadow of Leo is they can be very egotistical in some cases, right? But a lot of it, they can be egotistical and then in a very like negative way, and then a lot of it could be about like they might not be getting the attention they want, but that might be because they're not shining in the way they need to shine.
Yeah, but right? I notice so sometimes the Leo might blame that on the people around them in a way. So they're not shining.
Exactly.
They want to shine, and they blame people for not giving them attention or fulfilling their expectations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then so then they become egotistical. They think they're the greatest, but they're not doing. There's nothing great. They're not doing they're not like be great. Like Leo's about being great. They're supposed to be great. It's about greatness, right? But if they're not shining their light, and they're not coming from the heart, like Leo rules the heart. Leo can be, a Leo being at its full potential, channeling its full potential, is more heart-centered, right? Coming from the heart. And so when Leos are not fully in their heart and they're not creating or they're not performing or expressing, Leo's about self-expression. When they're not doing that at the best way, then what happens is, or not at all, and more the negative ego and the demand attention. They're like, oh, I need attention. Oh, you don't respect me enough, or whatever. Yeah. Well, why don't you just be a shine and be a star, and everyone will just gravitate towards you. Absolutely. And you'll get the attention.
And Leos are very powerful when they do express themselves.
Oh, totally.
I noticed, like very powerful, very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, Leos, all the fixed signs in general. Mm-hmm. Every sign's powerful in their own way, but the fixed signs are a very concentrated power.
Yes.
Absolutely. Very concentrated. Yeah. So that's what Leo is.
And Leo is ruled. Which planet is Leo ruled by?
By the sun.
By the sun. Oh yes, you said that. Perfect.
It's ruled by the sun. So yeah, the sun is the brightest. The sun, everything revolves around the sun, right? Yeah. The sun is the giver of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that's how Leo rolls, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Leo,
and Leo could even be about leadership as well.
Yes.
In some cases too. So after Leo, then we go to Virgo. Mm-hmm. We go back to an Earth sign, but it's mutable Earth. So, and it's ruled by Mercury. Back to another Mercury ruled sign.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's Mercury ruled in an Earth way, right? Whereas Gemini is air. It's more information, it's social. Mm-hmm. Mercury uses Virgo, like Mercury's the mind, right? Yeah. So Mercurial Virgo.
It's like the practical aspects of the mind, basically.
Of life, yeah. Like practical, like their mind is like, okay, what do I got to do? Okay, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to organize this. I got to. Their mind, they're mutable. See, Gemini and Virgo are also both mutable. They're adaptable, mm-hmm. But Gemini is more mutable and adaptable with communication and information and words, whereas Virgo is more adaptable when it comes to like what needs to be done in the physical world.
Yes.
Right. So like I used to work in the health food industry, and I noticed a lot of the store managers in the health food stores had Virgo. I used to look at their charts sometimes, and they had a lot of them had Virgo because in the health food industry, there's all these new companies coming and going, right? Like health food stores are different than mainstream stores. Yeah. They're smaller companies, right? So they always have to adapt. They're like, okay, they always got to change shelf space. They got to do this. And Virgo rules health too.
Yeah.
And so, or even like Virgos are like if things need to get done, like they'll walk into a situation and work needs to be done, and they just know they'll just adapt to whatever needs to be. Okay, what do I got to do? Okay, I got to do this. They just figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. They could be very efficient. They're very all about efficiency, being organized, and using their mind in an earth way. Right.
Beautiful.
And
I notice about Virgos sometimes,
sorry.
Virgos can, I notice in sort of the negative side, Virgos can be very fussy when their needs aren't being met, or when they're tired or overwhelmed by people.
What happens is they have like a bit of a martyr complex.
Ah, interesting.
Right? Like they're like, oh, I do everything, nobody does anything, blah 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 blah. But they like doing everything, even though they might say they don't. Like that's what they do. They just do things, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they can be like I don't know, is martyr the right word? But yeah, they can be like that, and they can be overly critical. They can be overly critical of other people.
Yes, and of themselves,
right? Like,
too, right?
About themselves, yeah. They're very they can be perfectionists. Things have to be a certain way. Things have to be done at a certain time. Things have to, like, if you have a meeting with a Virgo and you're late, a lot of times they might get about that. Yeah, right. And so, but they're all about, Virgos are really good at making the world functional.
Yes.
Right?
And I noticed Virgos
making things roll.
Absolutely. And I noticed Virgos are usually like pretty good rule followers. Like they like to sort of play by the rules and be a little bit more inside the box. And we need that in society as well sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. But yeah, generally speaking, and Virgo is all about purity, right? It's all about cleanliness. It's all about it's the virgin, right? And so that's why a lot of Virgos are associated with health, wellness, taking care of the body. Whereas like when we talk about Taurus, which is also Earth sign, Taurus is more about like the pleasures of Earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about the Earth pleasures, whereas Virgo is more about like making things functional in the earth, and making things clean and organized,
yeah. Fantastic. So, okay, so after Virgo is what, Libra?
Yeah. We have to talk about did we already cover it? The positive and
we did the positive, the negative, and the tip for the Virgo.
Yeah, we already kind of talked about the positive and negative, but the tips I would say for a Virgo is to not be not be overly critical about everything.
Yes.
Like they got to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they can get anxiety easily too, right? And also the pro tip is let's see, what would be the pro tip? I think I kind of probably already said it, but would be to like Gemini, it's good for Virgos to have a variety of things going on, but more in the physical, right? So it's good for Virgos because they can get they won't get as bored as easily as Gemini, but they can get bored too. Like it's good for them to have variety, right? They're not necessarily, and it's good for them to design their life where they're not like always have to focus on one thing. Although they probably could do it, it's good for them to sort of change things up too in their life as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, and then after Virgo, we have Libra, right?
Yeah, so we go to Libra. Now we're in the beginning of the fall. And so Libra again is a cardinal sign. It's initiating, but it's a cardinal air sign. Yeah. So Libra initiates relationships. Cool. Right? Like air signs are about social connections, social, right? So, but it's an initiating socially. So Libra is the type of Libra is the one sign where they'll, like, let's say you meet a Libra, you have a Libra in your life, and you appear to have nothing in common with them. they will find something that they have in common with you. Like,
some kind
I
of
must have
overlap
something in common.
somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll, and that's how they'll initiate. Like, oh, and they can, they can easily. There can be small talk easily as well, right?
Mm.
But it's not about small talk. But I'm just saying, if they're trying to find something, a way to communicate, initiate conversation with somebody, it could be small talk. But but the whole point is that it's not about that. They want to relate with people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what
So
they
whatever
really
way
care
they can
about.
relate. Yeah. Like, what do I have in common with you? What? And so Libra being, so that's how the cardinal energy works. And I would say, like, if you compare Libra to Gemini, which are both air signs, Libra is more interested in what others have to say compared to Gemini, because Libra is all about balance between you and me.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
Libra, Libras are really good at, like, people who do like interviews or anything like that, or
that
when they have
exchange
like some
conversation,
Libra,
essentially.
yeah, I think you have Libra energy in your chart.
Yes,
too,
my rising
Libra,
sign is a
yeah.
Libra.
So a lot of times people who do interviews like podcasts or radio or whatever, a lot of times it's good if they have Libra, because they're really good at, like, if the host was a Gemini, they're going to talk all the time, right? But if the host is a Libra, it's a good back and forth, right?
Absolutely.
And so and Libra is also about, like, finding balance, and if a Libra, so Libra is right at the middle of the zodiac. Like, the beginning of Libra is right dead middle of the zodiac. Okay.
Yes.
It's opposite Aries. We didn't really talk about oppositions, but I don't think we have time. But Libra is, when you get to the middle of the zodiac, it's the tipping point of the zodiac. It's the balance point. Right?
Yes.
And Libra wants to, like, if they see something, they could be very, like, generally, like, when you first meet Libras, like, generally speaking, they tend to be like, they try to be diplomatic, right? And they try to, like, nurture good relationships.
Yes.
But the thing is with Libra is that if they see something that's unjust,
yes,
that's imbalanced,
they're like the matcher. They always want, the justice.
They want to balance it out.
Yes.
Yeah, they want to bring out the other side. They want to balance things out, right? So that's where the justice comes. It's like, okay, there's an imbalance here.
We have to equalize.
If they feel like they need to, so sometimes, so they might say something. That's it. Libra's not really, like, an aggressive sign, but when that's the one thing that will anger them. One of the biggest things that'll anger them is that. And when they get angry, then they almost become like Aries, and they can be, like, aggressive about that in some way, but in a more nice way. But they're more of, like, in a passive way. They can be passive aggressive, right?
Yes.
But
I see that.
So Libra is also it's ruled by Venus, like Taurus, but more in the sense of, like, relationships and friendships. Yes. It's more social than Taurus. So it's that expression of Venus. Libra also is like, in a way, it does have some similarities to Taurus, where Libra is also about beauty, aesthetics as well.
Vanity, I've heard sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, like, could be vanity. Sometimes when you see, like, people who have lots of tattoos, a lot of times they have strong Libra in their chart too. Like, they like design, they like art, they like artwork. They're really good. Like, a lot of designers and artists are Libra.
So cool. So cool. Okay, so what do Libras have to watch out for?
So what they need to watch out for is, the thing is with Libra, which is the positive and the negative, is that they can be overly considerate of others sometimes. Unless there's an injustice, unless there's an imbalance, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times they can be overly considerate. Like, a lot of times they won't make decisions because they're like, oh, well, what's this person going to think? What's that person going to think? Or should I do this or should I do that? They can be split, like, oh, I don't know, right? And so the thing is with Libra is, and that's kind of what they're here to do, right? But the thing is my tip is for Libras is to don't let that quality of yourself hold you, because what happens is when they're too much like that, they don't get anything done in life.
Yeah,
because
like
they're always
over-giving in a sense, and always worried about everybody else.
Or just not even about giving, it's just overly considering.
Yeah.
You know, like what about if I do this, this person might get mad, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, getting trapped in that.
They get trapped in that, and then they don't get anything. They don't accomplish anything.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And then so that's
great.
Now,
that's a really good overview of Libra.
Yeah. Now, what I guess the pro tip for Libra, like the how to use their qualities, is I think to really, I don't know, I guess to you know, be the balancer in life, be the person who sees when things are imbalanced, be the person, trust their creative abilities, their aesthetic style, trust and they can be very like good orators, good speakers, good communicators in a different way than Gemini, like in more of a poetic, creative way than Gemini.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess
to trust that, to nurture that, basically.
Yeah, to trust that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
No, that's fantastic. That's a great tip. Yeah. Okay, so next is Scorpio.
Okay, so Scorpio is, so it's water. Now we're back to water, and it's fixed water. Yeah. So how do you fix water? You know, like what's fixed water look like, right? And it's like ice. You know, it's like ice. Yeah. And so it's like Cancer, like Scorpio can be very emotional, like all water signs, but like you said, they could hide it better. They're more Scorpio is like, it's constant, like fixed signs we talked about, it's a very concentrated energy.
Yes. So
Scorpio is like concentrated emotional energy, whereas Cancer is cardinal. Cancer is like a waterfall, you know, cries, just a waterfall, whereas Scorpio is like concentrated emotion, but they internalize things a lot, right? Internalize their emotion. But Scorpio is like this, because they internalize, emotional energy is extreme in positive or negative.
Yeah.
Like Scorpio can be like very loving. Like everyone thinks, oh, Scorpio is like crazy, but Scorpio can be, both of my parents are Scorpio. I know.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So Scorpio can be very loving, like very caring about their love. It's like like big time, right? And but there can also be, so their emotional sides, express in extreme ways. Like
it can come out like explosively in some senses.
In either way, yeah. So they can be like extremely caring and loving and right, but it might not come across in a soft, nurturing way like a Cancer though.
Yes.
It's loving, very loving, but not in that kind of way. It's also more, it's like maybe aggressive, in an aggressive way, in a way.
Yeah.
And then the because it's ruled by Mars, right? And then and Pluto, and then but then when Scorpio can be like, could also be like people who they don't like. They can be very like hateful towards them, and like they get angry about people, and they don't put up with people's shit, you know, and so they're very like very intuitive too, very intuitive. But Scorpio is their intuition is used in a way where they can sniff people out, you know, like they're very
detective or the investigator archetype.
Yeah, Scorpio's exactly the detective. They like, they'll meet somebody and to be like, oh, can I trust this person? Can I, you know what I mean? Like it takes a while to earn Scorpio's trust.
Yes.
Right. Yep. And Scorpio can be a very complex sign, but once you're in, you're in.
Yeah. Then Scorpios become really loyal, right?
Oh, they can be very loyal. Yeah, very loyal. But it takes a while to crack that shell, right?
Big time.
And Scorpio is all about merging with a, see, the thing is, we go back to the
Scorpios are
evolution.
very deep too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, very deep, but back to the evolution of the zodiac. Scorpio follows Libra, right? Libra is all about relationships, relating. I don't think I emphasize that much, but Libra is all about relationships, right? And especially one-on-one relationships. And Scorpio is the evolution of that, of the Libra energy, right? So Scorpio is all about is deep relationships. It's deep intimacy. It's like deep merging with another person. So it could be in that could mean Scorpio real sexually, right? It could be financially, like when you really it's like you're really in with somebody.
You're like connected to them and all
really
connected.
Yeah. So it could be financially, sexually, right? And like it could be about, Scorpio can be about like secrets and hidden things, and so when you Scorpio, like when they really merge with somebody, there's that's all, it's all part of the depth of Scorpio, right? Scorpio is all about like the things that are hidden beneath the surface,
and sort of like the transformational sign too, right?
Yeah, it's about transformation, right? And Scorpio, like, so Scorpio, people got a lot of Scorpio in their chart, depending on their level of consciousness, right? But a lot of Scorpios can be, like someone like you, for example, or can be conduits of other people's transformation. They can have transformational effects on other people, and they can even have it in a way where they're not trying to, too. Like for example, you can have a bad experience with a Scorpio in your life. For example, I'm just giving an example, but that bad experience can have a transformational effect on you, or you know what I mean? Like indirectly, that wasn't the intention, right?
Absolutely.
And so things like astrology are associated with Scorpio. Astrology is like a Scorpio thing because it's hidden, it's beneath the surface, it's, you know what I mean? And
it's the unseen, or beneath
the unseen, and Jupiter's in Scorpio right now, right? Jupiter's so this is like anything to do, this is an expansive time for like Scorpio related things, right? So like the whole Me Too movement, people revealing all those secrets, and right?
It's so interesting how that works too. I remember you saying that to me when I did a reading with you earlier in the year, end of last year, and you were saying, all these things are going to start happening. All these beneath the surface things are going to start coming to the surface because Jupiter's in Scorpio. And it's so interesting because you said that before all these things started to happen, and they're happening.
So Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and modern astrologers associate Pluto. Pluto's like a co-ruler.
Yes.
I look at it as like a sub-ruler. So Scorpio is the most, in a way, it's kind of like Aries, both ruled by Mars. They're both, out of all the water signs, compared to Cancer and Pisces, Scorpio is the most assertive water sign. It's more, it gets things done, it makes things happen. Because water signs are generally, like I said before, they're more receptive. They're more like, they're not initiators. Well, Scorpio's like that too. Scorpio's more receptive, but they definitely won't be initiating in relationships. Depends on the chart, generally speaking. But they're still like, things need to get done. Things need to happen.
Can be like very task oriented and intensely focused.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they make things happen. They go, right?
Yeah.
And so I read something online that they looked at the signs of the most wealthiest people in the world. I think Scorpio was number 1 or number 2.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Scorpios
so intense and so focused and so determined. Scorpios are very determined.
Very determined because it's fixed. Fixed signs are determined, right? And it's ruled by Mars. So Mars is very like I already told you, Mars is initiating. Scorpios they're like Aries. They can be fighters too.
Yeah.
But more when like when somebody's doing something wrong, like when they can be suspicious of people or whatever. But they're what else was I going to say about and then Pluto, it's ruled by Pluto too, co-ruler. Pluto is associated with transformation. Pluto is associated with is deep, has to do with the depth. It has to do with the secrets. It has to do with the power. Scorpio is very powerful energy. Scorpio is like like to have power. A lot of them, they like to have a lot. Like when Scorpios express in a negative way. So this will be the tip: is how is a Scorpio using their power?
Yes, that's a
Are they
fantastic.
abusing?
Yeah.
Yeah, are they abusing their power? Because Scorpios can be like a lot of people who are like, I'll give you an example. A lot of people who are into like things like witchcraft and things like that, like black magic. That's a Scorpio thing. It's because people like to have power, like to manipulate people. That's a Scorpio can be manipulative in a negative way.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with Scorpio is, you know, are you being manipulative? Are you abusing power? Are you like, you know what I mean? And because Scorpios are very calculated and strategic. Like Scorpios are like 5 steps ahead of you, you know. And so the thing is that can be a gift, but are you using it in a negative way? Are you using it to
or in a positive way to help or serve?
You can use it in exactly. So my advice to Scorpios is to use their very precise, like, you know, calculated, strategic, powerful energy in a way where they're doing good in the world instead of like, right? And I'm not saying like this only applies to Scorpios. Like if a Scorpio gets upset with somebody, right, then they might be like, oh, I'm going to get that person back, like revenge.
Yeah, Scorpios can be spiteful. I do see
very
that.
Revengeful, yeah. So my advice to Scorpios is to not be like,
not get caught up in those sorts of.
Not get too caught up in that, yeah, and use their power for good, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, and after Scorpio, that was fantastic. After Scorpio, we have Sagittarius.
Yeah, so Sagittarius. So now we're in the mutable fire. Sagittarius, like all the other mutable signs, adaptable, like to spread itself out. But it's fire, so it's kind of like a wildfire. Just spreading.
I like that analogy. Yeah. That's so interesting.
Kind of like a wildfire. And so Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter, let's see, how do I, so Sagittarius, again, it's very energetic, passionate, but it's passionate about like Jupiter things, right? So Jupiter is about like beliefs, philosophies, perspectives. Could be religious
wisdom sometimes, right?
Wisdom, yeah. Experience. Jupiter is all about freedom. Jupiter is about expansiveness, travel, right? So but there's different kinds of Sagittarians. Like there's Sagittarians that are very like freedom loving, and they like to travel and experience different cultures and experience different things.
Yeah.
But then there's Sagittarius that are, in some ways, they kind of seem like fixed signs in a way, because they can be like too caught up in their, like Sagittarius has to do with your beliefs and your philosophies.
Yes.
And so when you see some Sagittarians, you know, like when you see like in Toronto or other places, like I think of Yonge and Dundas, but you know, when you see like people who are handing out religious flyers and they're trying to preach the word of God, right? That can be a negative of Sagittarius, is like preaching their beliefs, like this is the way it is. And then they judge people who
and trying to like wildfire in your words, sort of spread that everywhere in a sense.
Exactly, yeah. And trying to and like maybe judging others. Like they can be, the negative of Sagittarius, they can be judgmental, because Jupiter can be judgmental. But and that's the I guess, you know, and they can be good teachers. Like Sagittarius is all about accumulating wisdom through experiential wisdom. Okay. And Sagittarius are really good at connecting the dots. Right. Looking at things from a big picture, a very broad
spectrum.
A broad spectrum. It's similar to Gemini, like they can be very broad.
Yes.
But the Sagittarius is more big picture and could be more intuitive than Gemini. Yeah. But Gemini is really good at the facts. Sagittarius sometimes might like overlooks facts sometimes, right?
Yes.
So
what is the tip for the Sagittarius?
So the tip for Sagittarius is to not be not be too preachy about your beliefs. Be adaptable, like be open to what other people believe. Be flat like that, because Sagittarius is about that too, being adaptable. Yeah. And and to, you know, trust their intuition more, but to experience life, experience things, travel, education, like spread themselves, like get information from
fill those needs, basically.
Yeah, fill those needs, because you might be and use your passion in a way where you're informing people, but not in a preachy way. Like they're the good teachers, right? But not
fantastic.
Yeah, I would just say that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so after Sagittarius, we have Capricorn, correct?
Yeah. So we go to Capricorn for sign of the winter.
And so now we're in like the last season, essentially.
The last season. Now we're moving more towards the collective part of the zodiac. Okay?
Yes.
So Capricorn is again, we're back to Earth sign, but it's cardinal Earth. It's initiating Earth. Yes. So Earth, we talked about, very grounded, practical, all about like Earth signs are all about mastery of the physical world, right? Capricorn, because it's a initiating Earth sign, it's a cardinal Earth sign. It's good at like you see like a lot of business managers, business people with Capricorn, because Capricorn, they'll initiate, like start a business or start this or start that. Or,
yes, that makes sense.
They're good at they're very like, they're more worldly out of all the Earth signs, right? So they like to make connections. They're very resourceful. So they're collective in a way where they like to have lots of connections and friends. Like, oh, I know this person can do this.
Like sort of the networking personality sometimes.
Yeah, but more of like, but the thing is with Capricorns too is that they, and this is just Earth, it's not necessarily bad. Some people might think it's bad, but they view people as like a resource too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this
like
person
sort of always looking for how can that person benefit me, that exchange in a way.
Yeah, like exactly. So they're really good at being resourceful, being the manager, delegating things to people.
Yeah.
They're
really very hardworking too, right?
They can be hardworking. Yeah, they're ruled by Saturn, right? So Saturn is about hard work. It's about discipline. It's about commitment. It's about responsibility. It's about structure. That's all Saturn stuff, and all that stuff applies to Capricorn.
Yes.
Right? Because Capricorns are the ones that bring structure into something, but they're not like Virgo and Capricorn are hardworking Earth signs compared to Taurus, but Capricorn is better at bringing structure into something compared to Virgo. Virgo's not really. They might seem structured.
Virgo's more of like the task-oriented person.
Exactly, yeah. Like they could be a bit structured. Don't get me wrong, compared to other signs, but they're more
sort of focused on making that structure happen.
Yeah, they're more like just more adaptable than Capricorn. Capricorn has because it's cardinal. It does have some. When it comes to anything to do with business, like cardinal is the leadership energy too. So Cancer, for example, could be leadership in family, right? Whereas Capricorn could be like leadership in when it comes to the material world, when it comes to business, when it comes to resources. And also Capricorn's the mountain goat, climbing the mountain, climbing the top. So Capricorns are very much like more, tend to try to be like, think long-term and be patient. Eventually we're going to get to the top, right? Capricorns are even about when Capricorn are too much in Capricorn shares some things as Leo, right? Where they both want to be the best at what they do, but Leo wants it for attention, right? Yes. Capricorn is not so much for attention; it's just they like to have the success. It's more the accomplishment,
the achievement in a way.
Achievement, yeah, and also Capricorns, when they're in their negative side, they can be too caught up in social status too. Which Leo can be like that too, right? And so Capricorn could be, this person's popular or this person's very successful. I want to be friends with that person. You know what I mean? Like
sort of like the social ladder climber in a way.
Totally, 100%. That's Capricorn, and so. But a lot of it's to help them serve their success in life, whether it's career success or just social status related, right? Fantastic. And So
what's the tip for the?
Yeah, my tip for Capricorn is to learn to be more personable with people.
Instead of
Because
looking at people as like a resource in a sense.
exactly, yeah, like learn to be more like
Connected or deep.
yeah, like like people are always going to be a resource for them, but just learn to be more like they might come across as too serious and business, and they might not have that the personal touch, the personal connection gets lost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
So that would be like, so that could be like a negative trait. And also like not getting too focused, like they can be so focused on their goals and responsibilities and their career, and
they forget to live a little bit.
Yeah, like balance that with their personal life. And some Capricorns can be a little bit traditional. Some cases, it depends on the chart, right? But yeah. I guess that's the pro
awesome.
end. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Okay, and then we have what's after Capricorn? Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius. So Aquarius is fixed air. It's the second last sign of the zodiac. Yeah. And we talked about air is social. It's all about friendships, or like air is social in general. Aquarius is collective socially. It's all about groups. It's all about, it's humanitarian. It's all about the world. It's all about like the world is one family. It's all about right. Whereas Libra is more about one-on-one, like you said. Aquarius is collective, right? And they're because it's the air sign, again, it's very intellectual energy. Aquarius, but it's fixed air. So Aquarius can be very like even though they're very like friendships and relationships and groups are important to them, they also still because it's fixed, they like to sort of they can still be very fixated on their own ideas and their own perspectives, their own ideals.
Yes.
Right? Even though they're social, they're still like they can be stubborn about their intellectualism.
Yeah. Right? I see that, thinking of different Aquarius.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like usually like when you go online, whenever you see all these scientists debating astrology, you see a bunch of videos like all these scientists saying, "Oh, astrology's BS," right? Most of them are Aquarian. Yeah, and they're proving astrology, right? Just by doing that, and they are, and there's such an Aquarian way, like the way they explain it, and so like they can be like stubborn in that way, but at the same time, they're also could be humanitarian. And Aquarius likes to because they're very collectively orientated, even though they might seem aloof and distant. Like Aquarius doesn't get too close with anybody.
Yeah, they like the big groups of people, and
they like the groups, but they're kind of like to be interdependent, right? And they like to have lots of friends, but they don't like to get too close. They don't like to merge with others. They don't like to, right? Like they're more like they like to have their freedom, right? And so yeah, so they but the thing is that they still always consider, like, generally speaking, right? But mankind and humankind or personkind is what's being considered. Like they're always considering that. Yeah. And well, generally speaking, and so that's why like Aquarius rules things like science and anything to do to help us evolve in our knowledge and anything, so invent things to benefit humanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could be humanitarian in a scientific way. It could be humanitarian in other ways too, right?
Absolutely.
Now,
so what's the
Aquarius is? Yeah, so Aquarius, I just want to say Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus as the modern ruler. So some Aquarians can be very innovative, inventive, and that's the Uranus side of Aquarius, like independent. They can even be rebellious in some cases. But then the Saturn side of Aquarius is Aquarius, even though they're social, they might still come across as a little bit like serious in a way, right? And that's the Saturn side. And then when they're serious about their perspectives too. And so that's sort of the Saturn. Those are some of the Saturn aspects of Aquarius. Now, they the tips are to trust their inventiveness, right? Like trust their ability. Like they could be very innovative, very inventive, but also like learn to be a little bit flexible too. And that's not an Aquarius thing to be flexible. In some ways it
So
is,
sometimes
but
they can be a little bit rigid, essentially, and to sort of
when it comes to their idea, when it comes to like their like mentally,
yes,
you know, they can be rigid. In other ways, they're not. In other ways, they like to change things up a lot too, right?
yes.
Aquarius, right? But when it comes to their ideas and their perspectives, and the one thing they need to be careful of is to well, that's it. And but I guess I answered both in one question.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, and then the last sign of the zodiac, and then what we'll have to do is, because this was so extensive and there's so much fantastic information, is if you're good with this, we'll bring you back to do all of the different the 12 houses, so we can actually link these two things up and people can have this really thorough understanding just from these two podcasts, which is fantastic.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So Pisces, tell us about Pisces.
So Pisces is water. It's the last sign of the zodiac.
Yes.
And it's water. It's immutable water. So Pisces is the ocean. It rules the oceans. Pisces is it could be also very deep, like Scorpio. But the way, I guess, where I should start is, it's the last sign of the zodiac, right? And the last sign of the zodiac is more about spirit. You know, we talk about the zodiac as evolution. Yeah. So Aries is like more independent, but Aries is also about birth. It's like a baby. It's the baby in a way. Yes. Right? So it's more about, it's associated with birth, Aries. It's the first, right? And that's springtime. Whereas Pisces is like, you know, winter, it's getting ready for birth, ready for spring, but it's associated with not so much death. The fall, Scorpio is more associated with death, but Pisces is like spirit. It's like, so Pisces generally
almost like the full evolution in a sense.
Yeah. So Aquarius is more,
in a way.
Aquarius is more collective, like collective, we're all one family, whatever. Yeah. But then Pisces is like, okay, oneness. It's all about spiritual oneness, spiritual connectivity with other people, but also spirit in general, spirituality, the unconscious, the collective unconscious. So that's why Pisces, generally speaking, Pisces tend to be more intuitive, more psychic, more, and sometimes they don't even realize it. They're very tuned to the unconscious.
It's almost, I noticed, like you're saying, I noticed with a lot of Pisces, it's like they're just so accustomed to their intuition. They're so intuitive, but they don't even realize
sometimes.
Yeah,
like they don't even realize they'll do something, and it's like, it was such a psychic thing that they did, but they didn't realize it was a psychic. They just did it. Right?
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, so they're very, but they can pick up, because they're very sensitive to the collective the unconscious energy.
Yes.
Right, so they pick up things very easily.
Yes.
And so the Pisces who are more aware of that, the more conscious ones, they like, a lot of them are like energy healers or things like that, right? And they have to be careful of
taking on too much.
Yeah, taking on too much of other people's stuff. And they need to like learn how to clear this is the tip, learning how to clear their energy, clear other people's stuff. That's one of the tips.
Wow.
Now, Pisces is it's also a very complex sign. But it's very like adaptable, it's in a way it's similar to Gemini, where they're multifaceted, right? Like Gemini, when you talk to Gemini, you know, they'll talk to you one way. They're very adaptable to different people. So is Pisces. Pisces, but not, Pisces is less communicative than Gemini, but Pisces is like, on an emotional level, on a connection level, they're like that, right? And so they, like, I have a lot of Pisces friends, and you'll see, like, they'll talk to one person different than they talk to the next person. And it's like, oh, how come you don't talk to me, connect to me like that, right? Yeah. Because it's just, you know, they're
like a chameleon that way, in a sense, but not necessarily in an authentic way. They're just good at forming that connection bridge.
Exactly. And they know how to, they just know, almost psychically, they how to connect with that person, right?
Yes.
They're really good at just feeling other people's pain and you know, and being Anything to do with like healing is really good. Pisces, the thing they have to be careful with is because they're so invested in the spiritual world, like Pisces are very tuned into their dreams, and a lot of them like to sleep a lot. But they have a hard time with the responsibilities of the real world, of the physical world, right? So Pisces, they're about escapism, right? So escapism could mean not getting out of bed. It can mean meditating all day long.
Drugs, alcohol.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is drugs. A lot of Pisces, especially the Pisces that have a less evolved consciousness, they'll even ones with evolved consciousness too, they could get too caught up because they can't handle the world, or they're too sensitive,
like overwhelmed by the world sometimes. And I notice sometimes too, Pisces don't realize where they end and another person begins. It's sort of like they struggle with boundary issues.
Boundaries, yeah, 100%. Because it's a fluid energy. It's water, right? But it's like the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, and Neptune is all about dissolving boundaries, right? And so my tip for Pisces is to so learn how to clear their energy, learn how to release people's stuff that they pick up, but also I know the real world can be hard for Pisces, but use your Pisces gifts in order to make the real world easier.
Absolutely.
Right? So Pisces gifts can
learn how to sort of integrate those gifts into the real world.
Into the real world, yeah. So Pisces can be very, very creative, very inspired, because they're channeling from spirit. They're channeling from spirit, right? So a lot of artists, visual artists, or even musicians.
Sometimes entrepreneurs too.
Yeah, entrepreneurs. Well, Pisces isn't necessarily an entrepreneurship sign, but it depends on the Pisces if they have a little bit of Capricorn in their chart or something.
Mm-hmm.
Some Pisces can be, but Pisces, if they are Pisces could have good ideas. They could have good business ideas, some of them, but to team up with people who if they need it, to team up with people who are more grounded and practical, because Pisces can be very impractical.
Yes.
Right. And get people to, if they are entrepreneurs and if they don't have that much earth in their chart or whatever, but yeah, learning to be more, use their gifts, use their talent, use their creativity, use their ability to tap into the collective unconscious. Some Pisces could be really good at Pisces entrepreneurs. Their gift is coming up with ideas or products or something that the collective is going to need or want, because they're tuned into that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This was absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for being here today and for going through all of this and for providing people with such a useful understanding when they want to say, okay, I met somebody and they're an Aquarius, or I met somebody and they're a Pisces, and to be able to come in here, understand themselves and understand those people in relationships as well.
Cool. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Cool.